Hey everyone, thank you. I definitely have a lot of slides. I'm going to win that award. If you can't see them, maybe move to where you can see them. Hey, I'm Jeremy. I'm from Australia. I've worked for a bunch of broadcasters doing large live stream events with SSAI, Olympics, FIFA, Australian Open, F1, all of those things. Also run the Sydney Video Technology Meetup. We've been going for 10 years. It's pretty popular. If you're ever in Australia, reach out to me, even if it's on your honeymoon, just say, hey, I'm going out for tonight, and we'll come and get you to present. All right, so my talk is about 2020. No, but let's start here because this is really where we started. I did this talk around 2020 around automatic closed captioning. We were looking, this is hard to see. How am I going to do this? We had a 30-year back catalogue of broadcast content. We needed to outsource the captioning. It was quite expensive. It would take quite a long time to do. It was a fairly manual process. And we thought, well, let's try one of these speech-to-text APIs that exist, and let's generate some VOD captions. Our VOD concept, and again, I'm going to flash a bunch of these diagrams. They're really conceptual abstractions of what really happened. But you know, we knocked this out, and we immediately started doing some premium drama content. You know, high production value, ideal conditions for where it's recorded, lots of accents, but essentially really well recorded content. And it worked fine. We thought we were good, so we thought we're done. This is easy. So then we started trying some of the news shows, the talk shows with live crosses, with regular presenters. Very well presented still. People are, when they present news, they typically present in a news voice. It's an odd voice, you've all heard it. I'm going to quickly cut to this. What's the capital city of Australia? Sorry? Canberra. There we go, Canberra. Australian names are often misinterpreted. Geelong, Melbourne, Cairns, Bondi, Launceston. And so we often found that this API was confused, Windsor to Windsor. We also found that it wasn't picking up homophones, so circular key, QUAY. And then we were just getting some other results that were very mixed. Our Prime Minister is Malcolm Turnbull. At the time. Look, maybe this is just our accent, but I got that one pretty wrong. So these models were trained with smaller data sets to what we see today. You know, perhaps they work better elsewhere, but for us it was getting confusing. You know, we thought about adding a manual checking process because everything had a score, but honestly, it just wouldn't scale up. We weren't being able to react quick enough. News content's coming in all the day. So news was the problem, but it wasn't actually our worst piece of content. There's one standout type of content that was failing. It was fishing shows. So in Australia, there's a lot of fishing shows. I don't know why. We had like 40 of them. And you've got these very you know, camping, rural, active people who are trying to speak Latin. And so black tea, stoma, platinum, like the slobbering catfish, like these were words that they were really catching up on. And it would get it so wrong that it would start to just hallucinate words that it should be or it thought it would be. And that was getting even more embarrassing. You know, again, maybe it's just our accents, especially for fishing shows. They're pretty thick. So, you know, all of our developers, they love the technology. Being a major broadcaster, we were really worried about liability. Especially in news, you need to present who did it, where they did it, and whether they're guilty or not. And if you screw that up, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. Interestingly, at the time, we uploaded content into YouTube for copyright protection, and the captions coming out of it were actually a lot better. So we kind of got the sense that maybe with a better model, trained on more data, trained on more Australians, we could get there. So the verdict then was, you know, this is going to get better, but right now it's probably not for us. Cut to 2025, where we are now. I now work at a different company and we work with sport. We've got lots of live commentary, but commentary in lots of accents, complex player names. In that, I mean an African name in a French league presented by a Scottish voice. Like, it gets even worse than the Latin fish names. A lot of football terminology that unless you really knew what you were listening to, you wouldn't understand, and you probably translate properly. So we went out to IBC, and I got this idea of buying a box that was going to do all our captioning. We're going to stick it somewhere in the workflow, and it was going to be fine. But then it needed a decoder and an encoder. But then you needed 2 per location. And then you had your package and your backup and your dual redundancy. So suddenly this wasn't one box, and it wasn't cheap, and it was going to be very costly, and it was going to take us a long time to install and get the hardware in place, get network approvals, get through security. I work at a telco. It's pretty excruciating. So we decided, well, maybe this AI captioning thing's going to work for us. Maybe we should have another look at this again. Now, caveat to everyone here who works in broadcast, I didn't need to create captions for a broadcast or a transport stream or anything like that. So I cheated. I merged it on the package or in the manifest. So have AI advances improved my slide design from my yellow and white slides? Definitely not. This is a cat on holiday in Venice Beach because I fly through LA. So I go to Venice Beach for an hour and get some tacos. So we compared AI offerings. There's a few here that we presented. We weren't super cautious around licensing models, but really we just wanted to see what would happen if we tried these guys. And we went back to the Google speech-to-text API. Has it improved over the last few years? And you can see here, this is basically how we tested it. We took one piece of content, we ran it through, and we tried to build a side-by-side player model where we could see each caption. You can kind of see the hallucination towards the bottom on some of the caption providers. We tried with different sizing of AI models, and we tried to compare it back to our paid provider that we were paying to caption content on live sport. Immediately, it was better. Like, we were getting better results, but the LLMs were inferring football. It understood players. It understood football. It understood player names. It understood what Old Trafford is. Does anyone know what Old Trafford is? It's a football stadium. It handled the accents really well. So immediately we were seeing not just better results than what we were paying for, but better results because the context was there. The AI had figured this out. It was so good it actually picked up the crowd chants. So it could hear the chants in the crowd and it knew the words to the songs that they were singing. So we landed on Whisper. I'm not saying this is the right way to go, but this is the one we landed with. And then you can see here there's a bunch of different models, different sizes, and they all had benefits and they had disadvantages. For us, in the scenario we're working for, Tiny was so small we could run it in a Lambda and it was 10 times speed. It was crazy. The larger model started hallucinating, and if you gave it a VOD context, it actually decided that the player had scored another goal. It started deciding that there was an extra 10 minutes of play, so our manifest video and our caption files were completely different lengths. So we landed on the small. Again, this is just where I landed because I know it's going to be a question after. So the next problem. Our content is news, it's sport, it's live, it's timely. So time to live is super important. How do you get a clip out as quickly as possible? And Amazon's tech stack, as you can see, getting a 20-minute video out was quite great. But when it came to the captioning, it was slowing us down because it needed to run in real time. So how do we fix that? Can we speed it up? There's more cats coming, guys. The immediate thought was, well, let's just parallel process. So at least unblock it And then when the captions become live, we can publish the captions after we publish the content. So we're not slowing it down, but we're not presenting the full story immediately. And that worked, but it was still slow. So we sliced it. We took the 20-minute clip, we sliced it into 20, 60-second clips, captioned them all independently, and then combined it down in one big video. And this worked great. Who believes me, though? No, it didn't work well. It had other problems. So we ended up losing a lot of context. So when you're streaming video, the context of the video, if you're only giving it 60 seconds, it's not aware that it's a football game yet. It's not aware that it's been streaming the first half and it's onto the second half. It's lost track of the player names, the context that it had picked up from before. And when you slice on time, you're slicing at any point. So I'm going to circular key this afternoon. I'm going to circular key this afternoon. Running it through the model, I'm going to circular T this afternoon. So this is the sort of thing we started seeing a lot of, and we realized, well, this hasn't really worked for us. How do we solve this problem? And we're just going to keep creating problems, by the way. So we did a carryover. So let's take a little bit of previous and then the overlap, and then let's caption as we go using this way. This worked. It basically solved a lot of the problems we're having. It wasn't as good as running a very long session. VOD is always a lot better because you've got the entire file. So as it's going through the file, it learns and it corrects its errors from earlier in the content. But the next problem we had was when it did misinterpret, we had lots of words that we probably never want to see. We had lots of words that we were worried about. A classic one is World Cup. Slavic names often end in ik, which is misunderstood in ich and can be present in other words. We're also worried about generationally how words can be interpreted. I'm way under. And generationally how words can be interpreted, but then regionality, so how different countries might pick up different words. Bender in the UK, not a great word, things like that. So our first attempt was overzealous, and basically we've ended up just creating a whole bunch of headaches for ourselves. We brought it back, we thought about it a couple of times, we iterated over it. We got to a pretty good list. It was a fun meeting though, coming up with a list of words that you're not allowed to say. But there was one misinterpretation that kept standing out. The company's called Optus Sport. I've learned that Optus is a Latin word, and we're back to Latin again, is to choose or to decide. And that made sense because Optus was initially the second telco in Australia, so it was the other option. So misinterpretations, Optic Sport, Optus Sport, Optus Sport, Optis. This was a problem, right? And do we need to then create interpretations for every single misinterpretation? We go nuts, right? We'd be constantly catching up, trying to work out other instances where this was a problem. And it turns out we can't be the only ones, because there's a YouTube channel that has 788,000 subscribers that how to pronounce Optus Sport. So we can't be the only one with this problem. So we're worried, do we need to train all the variations of commonly misinterpreted words? Let's start with Optus. Let's also start thinking about certain player names that are popular that often got misinterpreted. And that seemed overwhelming. Then I learnt about the Levenstein distance, and I've butchered that, but you're going to live with it. The way it works is by selecting the minimum number of edits needed to transform one string to another. This is about as technical and deep as I'm going to go. But essentially, here's Optus Sport, and you can translate it through the least number of steps. I like this drawing better. This way it explains it a little bit better. It's picked up one of these interpretations, and then you can define what it actually should be. So then, what does that mean? We're able to create a handful of variations that meant Optus Sport, put them into the model before we load the model, then we caught all the misinterpretations of Optus Sport. Worked for us. There were some other words there. There was a bacon burger that we kept presenting that it kept misinterpreting. So that was another one that we kept seeing a lot of. And then that was about it. We started shipping this out and we started thinking about, well, what else could we do now that we have these captions? Can we translate them? Because we had a lot of global content, a lot of sport from around the world, European tournaments and such. Because, I mean, when you think about it, the VTTs are just text files, right? So if you can persist the time codes and the sequence, then you can translate the rest of the VTT. So we learned from the other lessons, try and create, logically group the sentences and then translate them. Logically group paragraphs if you can, even better, before you translate them. You get a much better inference model. Especially some languages. I'm not a linguist by any means, but there's romantic languages that play everything in reverse to what we're used to. So you need to do that. And we grabbed an API and we ran it through and spat out every weird language we could come up with. Didn't have Klingon. Sorry, Joey. We didn't use your model. We used someone else's. But yeah, you can see like the captions in multiple languages were there. The solution we built was based on a request model. So we weren't creating every single language, every single version, every time. On the first request for Polish, we would then generate Polish. And if that was the only person that watched it, then that's fine. That works really well. The players picked it up and worked with it. We didn't have to write code. The players support these captions natively, which is wonderful. I do understand I'm putting an animated GIF into a video conference, but it works with Google Slides. So the next steps that we thought about was, well, where are the regulations headed in OTT streaming in Australia? Because that's a problem if the regulations are pushing in directions that we need to support. Let's get ahead of that. We started deciding, well, have we landed on the right model? Do we need to keep reviewing models? So we're still doing that work. We have a lot of physical encoders, GPU compute. Can we use that for other AI loads? Like, do we really need to use cloud all the time? And then the last thing, I guess, with AI was how do we get to the point where we can do audio descriptions? So audio descriptions is a regulation requirement, I think in the UK already, and it's coming in other countries too very quickly. So should you use AI captioning? I mean, apart from what I've shown today, I check your laws, liability, talk to other teams, accuracy, latency, these sort of concerns. Storage requirement, a big one is if you are creating these files, how long do you legally have to hold on to them for? Confirm your output requirements. Again, for us, we only had a manifest, so we were able to mitigate delivery for like a satellite or a broadcast channel that would have been a bit more painful, or if we had to syndicate into another partner, that would have been a bit more painful. SSAI always makes things fun. It always adds a bit more complexity, and for this it was getting the timings to line up so we could do the slicing correctly. That was a bit of a challenge, but we got there. But I think the big one is accessibility. Like, you're doing this for the right reason. You're doing it for accessibility reasons, but you need to be sympathetic of who your presenters might be, where you're presenting this to, what devices, what the outputs are actually going to be for. That was 2 stories, 66 slides, and 11 cat pics. That's me really asking questions now.